This is not a fancy dinner. This is the sort of dinner I make when the day's gone a bit wrong and we still need the evening to feel like home. By the end of this, we want to give you three things: a meal from your supportive leftovers, a small way to steady the household, and questions worth asking before the day is done. Tonight is not really what are we cooking night. It's a how do we get through the evening like decent human beings night. Before you even get cooking, there's this moment. What have we got? What can today borrow from yesterday? What is already here that might make this hard day just a little bit easier? And honestly, I think there's something deeply useful in that, because most of our life is not built on fresh starts. It's built on what's left, from what we've saved, from what we've remembered to keep, from something tired, ordinary, half forgotten in the fridge that still has one more job to do. So, pierogies. Not the precious sort, not the sort a food stylist would choose. These are made from leftover mashed potatoes and bacon already in the fridge, which means dinner begins where a lot of us begin. Not with inspiration, but with what we've got left. And honestly, I think there's something useful in that, because life rarely hands you a clear counter, a full battery, or a beautifully organized plan. Mostly it hands you leftovers, a slightly questionable mood, and people are somehow still hungry. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, you're meant to make that evening work. I think some meals can, not because they're magical, not because they solve your marriage, your budget, your inbox, or the general state of the world, but because every now and then, a humble dinner can do something else entirely. It can settle people. It can buy back 10 minutes. It can turn everybody from separate little storms back into a household. And I think that matters more now than we often admit. I'm not making this because pierogies are efficient. In fact, quite the opposite. If efficiency were the point, we'd all be sat on our devices waiting for a delivery and telling ourselves somehow we were gaining time. In fact, I'm making this because it takes a minute, because it needs a hand, because it says yesterday can still help today be just a little bit better, and because we're not giving up on the day just because it got away from us. And that's what this is. Not dinner as a performance, but dinner as a recovery. And I think a reset meal has three jobs. First, it uses what is already here. Second, it asks just enough of you to pull yourself back together. And third, it gives people something warm and recognizable at the end. And I think that's terribly underrated. I think recognizable food. Not every meal has to introduce itself like it's applying for a fellowship. Some nights, what people want is something that feels like it knows why it has been invited. Leftover mash is a perfect sort of thing. Yesterday it was one dinner, today it becomes another, and maybe that's part of why I like it so much, because there's something deeply encouraging in taking something that's left over and making it enough. Not glamorous enough, not optimized enough, just enough, which is frankly a standard more of us should use. I think one of the quiet lies of adult life is that everything worthwhile must begin with something fresh. A fresh start, fresh energy, fresh groceries, fresh attitude, even a fresh week. And yet, most of real life is not made of fresh starts. It is made of the remnants from yesterday's potatoes, from half the butter you thought you had, from the mood that could be better, from the people who still need something from you, even when you are a bit low yourself. And that's real life. And to my mind, cooking has always been the most useful thing here. Not the polished ends of things, but a rescue end. There's also something about making handmade pierogies that helps. And I don't mean in a grand spiritual sense, I just mean the small physical job can be very kind to our mind. Fill, fold, press, set aside, and repeat. There is in comfort in a task that knows where it's going, and sometimes when you're in your own head and it's noisy, it's quite a relief to borrow the certainty of a next small action. That too is part of the point. Because the reset is not only at the eating stage, the reset starts earlier. When you mix the dough, when one useful smell begins to replace the general emotion of the weather of the day, when your hands have something plain to do, when the kitchen stops being another place that needs managing and starts being a place that's helping. That's the bit I think we've lost sight of. The kitchen used to carry more than food. It carried rhythm, sequence, tasks, comfort, a real reason to gather, and a way to move the day along. And no, I don't think dinner needs to become a 3-hour heritage reenactment that earns its keep. But I do think we are allowed to ask a little more than mere consumption. And for me, this sort of meal does ask a little more. It asks, can we take from what's left and turn it into something warm? Can we rescue the evening without pretending it's been a splendid day? Can we make one decent thing before we go to bed? Sometimes that's enough of an ambition, more than enough actually. So yes, I do think a meal can do more than just feed people. Not always, not theatrical, not some smug lifestyle magazine way, but in the real world, an ordinary Tuesday with a tired house and a pan on the stove. Yes, I think it can soften the edges. I think it can give shape to the evening. I think it can insert in 10, 15 minutes where everybody is not scattered. And I think that is more than a small thing. Also, to be fair, anything fried in butter involved mashed potatoes has a head start. So let's not pretend philosophical alone can carry the operation. There are limits. But I do love that these don't begin with abundance. They begin with leftovers. There is something honest about that. A lot of people are living on leftovers of one kind or another. Leftover time, leftover patience, leftover energy, or even leftover optimism. And I think there is something particular dignity in saying, right then, let's start there. Let's not wait until we're at our best. Let's make something of what we are now. That might be the whole lesson, honestly. Because that's not just cooking advice, that's life advice while I'm wearing an apron. Let's start with what we have here. Use what we've got, add warmth as you can, turn it into something shareable, and do not despise the modest rescue. The modest rescue is still a rescue. And when these go to the table, I think what I want most is not applause. I want a little moment where people take a bite and become slightly more themselves. That's one of my favorite things food can do. Not amaze, but restore, even just a little bit. So, if the day has gone a little sideways, or the fridge looks a little uninspiring, or everyone in the house is worn a little thin, here's tonight's grand philosophy. Don't ask dinner to be impressive, ask it to be useful. Ask it to bring a little bit of warmth, a bit of order, a bit of calm, a bit of, right, we're still here, and that's plenty. And before the day ends, there's one little ritual I rather like. During the folding of the dough, or at the table, or even while doing the dishes, ask, what did you like best about today? What would you change about the day if you had it over again? And what do you hope for tomorrow? That's it. Nothing performative, nothing terribly therapeutic, just enough to help everyone locate themselves again. Sometimes the evening doesn't need to be a breakthrough, it just needs a shape. So, pierogies from leftover mash. A meal from what was left. A small rescue. A way of saying the day does not have the final word. And I think we need more of that. The point was not performance. The point was health.
Yeah, but I want another pierogi.
We're going to do this for a couple of minutes. I'm going to wash all my utensils in here. Put them all into the slush.
It's just a way to make us clean up.
No. But I like that you think that is.
I thought this was a way for you to sneakily make me clean up with you.
No, this was just a way to get some good NB roll that I can put over some credits or something at the end. Do you want to open up the dishwasher for me?
Sure.
You can open it and we'll load up the top.
You nasty bugger. You're just making me clean.